This is my ink line art done for multiple purposes, including for day 27 Thunder for Inktober this year, as well as being an artwork for my project Imagiscria. This is also a potential piece I can use for sale artwork or for my calendar this year. I'm working on very large sheets of paper I call May paper, a mysterious cardstock I bought from a woman named May. I drew the pencils off camera because my traditional videos have been taking forever to upload, so I'm trying to shorten the total time of traditional recordings. I highly advise using reference of a cat for drawing dragons and other mythical creatures including griffins, which is what I did for the pencils for this one. I also looked up my reference I'd made previously for bats to help me draw the wings. When you're inking, be careful not to smudge the ink. The only reason I'm going over top of where I already inked a little bit here is because these indie ink fine liners actually dry very quickly and I find I don't have smudging issues. But if you're using ink that has smudging issues, be very careful about which direction you're inking in. Thunder dragons are one of the 5 original types of dragons I've invented so far for a world called Imagiscria for my project Imagiscria. Also called Thunderdraka, they are medium-sized out of the dragons, which is still quite enormous when fully grown, as much as 100 feet long. They're immune to electricity and resistant to sonic, also called thunder damage, and they are magically healed, recharged, and empowered when hit by electricity, which they seem to find quite pleasant. Often they're known to chase thunderstorms and seek to be struck by lightning. They're also very fast and acrobatic flyers. Often they also roar loudly and can be fierce, aggressive, and territorial. For the inking process, I made sure to use different sizes of fine liners. Most of the beginning inking here was done in the smallest sizes, so the extra small and small size for my Faber-Castell Pitt Indie Ink Artist Pens, which is quite a long name for these pens. And I find these pens are very good because they don't smudge easily, they dry and set into the paper quickly, and they have a very dark black ink, so that when I erase the pencil underneath, they don't actually fade very much. And as well, I only need to wait 15 to 20 minutes for the ink to set in the paper. With some other fine liners, it's better to wait 8 hours or more to prevent fading and allow things to settle into the page. The downside to these are that they are not alcohol proof, for India ink is very affected by alcohol, so if you are art markering over top, I advise using an alcohol proof fine liner, and these are most certainly not. Because I was doing it as line art and planning on scanning it and photographing it to paint over or use it more just as a line art, there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't use my Indie ink pens. It's also worth noting that they're completely waterproof once dry, but I do advise waiting at least 20 minutes before putting water over top or erasing, as I said, so it can set into the page. And the other factor is that they are completely archival and light fast, which is definitely a benefit if you want to make artwork that lasts the test of time. I'm going in now and adding in various details. All the scales are done in such a way as to have a slightly pointed shape because I thought that suited this dragon design better than making it a more rounded shape. I also went in and made sure that any of the lines that didn't quite seem thick enough where the shadows would be dark were thickened up and made to be more defined. The dragons of this world are considered fully people, and individuals vary greatly. Depending on the timeline and the cultures, how the humanoids interact with them might vary greatly, but in general, dragons are actually quite respected and considered people but more wild than the average race. Dragons are also able to command very powerful magic and tend to have very strong immunities. All dragons also have a breath weapon. In the case of the Thunder Dragon, it breathes powerful electricity. So here's a bit of a camera zoom in on the artwork here before I erase the pencil and before I cut it down to fit on my scanner for scanning. So this is the finished piece. It's a Thunder Dragon from Project Imagiscria for Inktober Day 27 Thunder, after I've erased all the pencil. Well, it looks like I missed a couple pencil spots. So I'm just gonna have to finish erasing the rest of that pencil, aren't I? So just go over it one more time with a kneadable eraser, make sure I got the rest of that up. Then I'm gonna have to cut it out so it gets to the 11 by 17 size and see if I'm going to color it in some way. I cut it down and scanned it into my computer. Transferring it to my iPad was a big hassle, but doable. First I had to put it into Clip Studio Paint through iTunes on my iPad Pro. Then I attempted to pen it in said program, originally using a screen recording that is available on the iPad Pro. I painted the sky, rocks, and dragon color flats on different layers before double checking and discovering that it was not in fact screen recording. So instead, I had to save the lines and export it to Dropbox, then open them back up in Procreate, which seems to work very well at doing the time-lapse recordings just fine for me. In fact, had no luck so far. Anytime I try to use the screen recording feature on the iPad Pro and actually make a proper video out of it, I might just give up, or I might look up what I'm doing wrong. I used various layers in Procreate and certain specialty brushes. In general, I filled in large areas of color flat and used different brushes to get the basic color tones in. This I'm doing here is the shadow layer, which I have set to multiply, and the lightning layer is on top of everything else, and I used certain luminance light brushes in order to paint those effects. I used a few downloaded brushes to paint the clouds in the background, and I'm mostly using the basic paintbrush to do a lot of the main painting in here. I'm also using smudge tools and changing the size and opacity of my brush quite a bit throughout the painting. I had to use a very interesting trick that I looked up on YouTube in order to make the line art set to opacity. So when you draw in Procreate, you can use alpha lock so that you only draw over where you already drew, which is very useful for line art. But when importing the image, the whites of the line art are considered part of it as well. So there's a very strange way you can use to separate it out. It's pretty tricky and convoluted, so let me know in the comments if you want me to make my own video about it, or you can just try to look it up on YouTube like I did. I decided in general that it would be a very good idea to add stripes to my Thunder Dragon design because it just felt like it suited it, as well as I'd previously designed the way the species was by doing the 4 horns that can actually form electricity between them, though the main breath weapon comes from the mouth. Here I am adding finishing touches, texture, and details onto the pillars of rock, and just adding final touches and details. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave any suggestions or comments below, and let me know if you wanted anything better explained in this video, and anything else you'd like to see for Project Imagiscria. I'm posting every Wednesday, and if there's a delay, it's almost certainly because the video took an extremely long time to upload. Have a great day! Bye!